I'm posting this from our unresolved mysteries because I'm at my wit's end. I cleaned the old family basement yesterday, a space I'd always felt was oddly comforting, a sort of safe haven of memories, and found something that's shattered everything I thought I knew about my family. I'm Brittany, by the way, and I need help untangling this mess. Brittany, OP. Hey everyone, I'm feeling completely unmoored right now and need some guidance. While cleaning the old family basement, a space I've always found oddly comforting but recently unsettling, I stumbled upon a hidden bundle of letters. They were love letters between my grandparents, Mima and Poppy. At first glance, they exuded warmth and intimacy, the kind you expect from a couple who weathered decades together. But as I read further, subtle hints emerged that I wasn't prepared for, cryptic allusions to rescuing someone at a hospital, juxtaposed with dates and private references that strangely aligned with the day my mother was born. One letter in particular mentioned, "In the rush, fate intervened. She's ours now, our secret to keep safe," leaving my mind racing with possibilities. Was it possible that my grandparents had abducted my mother under the guise of a loving rescue? Or is there an entirely different, convoluted story behind their actions, a desperate measure taken in a time of crisis, perhaps even a twist of fate where love and duty collided in ways I can't yet comprehend? Every time I revisit these letters, I'm torn between the comforting image of familial devotion and the chilling notion of secrets buried under layers of care and manipulation. I'm at a loss about how to proceed. Should I confront my family, delve deeper into archival records, or simply let these enduring mysteries rest? Any advice or insights into how to navigate this psychological labyrinth would be immensely appreciated. I'm still shaking as I write these words. For years, I'd held my grandparents in the highest regard. They were the epitome of kindness and ardor, the quiet heroes of my childhood. But standing there in that cluttered, dimly lit basement, amid boxes of old photographs and forgotten trinkets, I felt something shift. The letters weren't written in the warm, looped handwriting I remembered from my childhood scrapbooks. They carried a deliberate precision, almost clinical in their phrasing. I spent the night scrolling through our family's digital archives and pinned dates on my calendar. One letter mentioned a hospital rescue aligning exactly with my mother's birthday, a day that had, until now, been celebrated with quiet family rituals without explanation. My mind began racing. Were my grandparents protecting a secret, or had they pulled my mother into a vortex of decisions made in some desperate moment? A few hours after posting my initial query, a user named methodical underscore mind replied, methodical underscore mind. Brittany, your story is both beautiful and unnerving. It's almost as if love was weaponized to shield a secret. Have you asked your parents about any family stories or unusual circumstances surrounding your birth? Sometimes the truth hides in familiarity. I hesitated. Every time I thought about questioning my parents, I remembered the cautious tone my mother used whenever the topic of old family decisions came up. Yet, the more I peeled away the layers, the more I suspected that they'd left gaps intentionally. I did more digging. I unearthed an old diary belonging to my grandmother, tucked away in a side compartment of the basement. The scrawled pages described moments of elation and despair, a time when love was intertwined with heartbreak and necessity. One passage, dated exactly 2 days after my mother's birthday, read, "The choice stands as both duty and sacrament. To rescue is to love beyond boundaries, even when those boundaries are obscured by life's harshness." I started hypothesizing. Perhaps in some moment of crisis, my grandparents had taken a chance on something they believed was destiny. Yet the language struck me as coded. Rescue and secret echoed like encrypted commands rather than mere affectionate sentiment. If I'm being frank, the psychological dissonance here is maddening. How could something meant to preserve life also be so unforgivably manipulative? Later that evening, I revisited the Reddit thread to update the community. Brittany, OP, Update 1. I found my grandmother's diary. It seems to hint at a scenario deeper than I initially imagined. There's talk of a choice that must be safeguarded, a necessity born of circumstances where no one else would intervene. The language is poetic but unsettlingly clinical. Has anyone encountered something similar in family histories? How does one reconcile the warmth of love with the icy chill of control? A user named Echoes in Time responded, Echoes in Time. There's often a gray area in family secrets where intentions clash with consequences. My relative once mentioned an incident in our family where a well intended act turned coercive over time. It might be worth exploring local newspaper archives around that date. Sometimes factual reporting reveals a story that personal accounts have shrouded in secrecy. The suggestion spurred me to visit the local library's digital newspaper archive. As I keyed in relevant dates, I discovered a brief mention, a hospital incident described in sparse, detached language. In the wake of a chaotic emergency, a newborn was spirited away, unharmed but under extraordinary care. There was no further explanation, only a reference to family intervention. The headline was nondescript, almost as if the story was meant to fade into forgetfulness. But now it loomed large in my mind like an unfinished puzzle. The psychological toll was immense. Every piece of evidence suggested that what I'd assumed to be a simple act of love might have spiraled into something far more intricate. I began to doubt every memory and every whispered anecdote from family reunions. Would my mother have ever shared this cryptic past willingly? Was I allowed to even question the narrative of my own origin? The twist that tormented me was not in the possibility of unfettered horror, but in the realization of how intimately love and control can intertwine. I recall a conversation with my mother years ago when she quietly confessed, "Sometimes, to keep someone safe, you have to make choices that aren't easily understood." At the time, it sounded like an abstract pondering, not a coded admission of a secret rescue mission that blurred the lines between benevolence and abduction. Now, as I read every word my grandparents ever penned to one another, I began to suspect that this was the family's unspoken truth. A few days later, another commenter, Quiet Bravery, added this: Quiet bravery. Family secrets, especially those rooted deeply in love and sacrifice, often reveal more about human complexity than any ghost story. I suggest talking to someone who might provide a more objective perspective, maybe a family friend or an older relative who isn't as emotionally entangled. Inspired by this, I reached out to Aunt Lisa, a minor family figure who rarely intervened in these murky discussions. Over a hesitant phone call, I broached the subject. Aunt Lisa's voice, worn yet gentle, finally relented. Brittany, sometimes people do things in desperate times. Your grandparents always believed they were saving someone. That letter, that phrase about our secret to keep safe, it wasn't about possession as much as it was about responsibility. There was an incident, a moment when your mother was at risk, and they acted without knowing all the consequences. They believed, perhaps misguidedly, that in protecting her, they were doing the most loving thing. The implications were less monstrous than I'd feared, yet far more complex. Love wasn't neat. It wasn't simply warm and clinging. It could be a labyrinth where duty, desperation, and affection twisted together into decisions we might not fully understand until much later. Now, as I chronicle every conflicted thought in this thread, I realize that my ongoing internal battle is with my own feelings of betrayal and the need for a coherent narrative. I look at those letters, those diary passages, with new eyes, seeing not only the possibility of manipulation, but also the self sacrifice implicit in their actions. Yet the psychological tension remains. How do I parse the intimate language of betrayal from that of salvation? How do I reconcile the old memories of a basement that once offered solace with the notion that, behind every loving gesture, there could hide a dark, almost imperceptible calculus of control? I'm sharing this not because I expect a definitive solution, but because I believe in the strength of multiple perspectives. Truth, in its raw form, is messy. It's interwoven with emotion and intent. I'm left with no neatly wrapped outcome, only more questions. Do I confront someone who might still carry that secret in their heart? Do I document everything and eventually let my own understanding evolve naturally? Your insights have been a balm to my unsettled mind. This journey, this psychological labyrinth, has shown me that the horror isn't in some supernatural force or lurking monster, but in the human capacity for creating narratives that protect and confound simultaneously. I'm learning that sometimes the only way out is to accept ambiguity and understand that love, however its disguise, is a powerful, double edged thing. Thank you for listening, for offering your thoughts, and for reminding me that I'm not the only one who's ever questioned the past. I'll keep you updated as I continue to explore this tangled legacy. Brittany. Now, as I shut my laptop and take a deep, steady breath, I know the journey ahead is as much about understanding myself as it is about unveiling family secrets. The basement, once a refuge of nostalgic comfort, now stands as a testament to the blurring of boundaries between care and control. a reminder that the most unsettling truths are hidden not in ghostly shadows, but in the quiet, deliberate choices of those we love. I'm left with a profound question. How do we integrate the unsettling complexities of our lineage into our own identity without losing the very sense of belonging we so desperately seek? Sometimes the truth isn't a sharp, singular revelation. It's a slow, creeping melancholy that reshapes everything familiar. And perhaps, in that gradual transformation, there is a kind of tragic beauty worth holding on to.